So my local track was open for an open practice day, and I thought I'd take advantage of that by actually running the Team Corally Syncro-4 up against the Team Corally Spark XB6 and find out which would perform actually better on the racetrack. So these two cars were completely stock. The only thing I did was change out the tires. So on the Syncro-4, I'm actually running whole shots. On the Spark, I'm actually running J-Concept's reflexes. So very, very similarly set up. I did actually run my Genzace 5300 milliamp hour battery for S-Pack in both cars. So same battery in both cars. These tires are fairly similar in terms of traction. I think the reflexes are a hair better at this local track, but the whole shots always work pretty well. But completely stock otherwise, and I just want to see how they perform. So first thing we're going to do is kind of show off the two buggies side by side, and then afterwards I'll talk about which ones I thought actually performed and kind of what the differences are between the two buggies and how they actually drove. So yeah, let's check out some running footage.
We made it! Hey Jesse, I'm gonna pit in, pull it up on the starter, and then check the temp. I got stopped. I wasn't looking, I crashed. Alright guys, you got ready to pit? Alright, put it up on the stand. Alright, let's see what the temp is. 200. Do you want to try to do an hour in on this screw? Do you want to learn how to do it? I'll be down. I can hear it breaking out and down. I only got the power. So this is going to be and I'll do the timer, and then we'll hit in again after the timer. But see if you can just lift it up here, and then squirt it in, okay, and then do it like that. And then just wait till I lift it and start picking on it. Alright, go ahead and set her down.
it's running.
Whatever.
Yeah, like 5 minutes.
Water down.
There you go. Some running video there. Just want to talk about the Syncro-4 first of all. The radio. I didn't like the CT2S as good as the CT2R. This is their lower end radio. The main reason why actually is that the steering wheel is very, very stiff on this radio. So kind of the only thing I really didn't like about that radio. Just overly stiff. Felt kind of weird driving it. You know, normally I run a much lighter spring tension. So for that reason alone, actually, the CT2R did perform better. I don't know if there's actually a difference in terms of actually performance in the radios themselves. I think the protocols are the same, so I'm not sure there's really a difference there. But definitely CT2R with the Spark is a little bit better radio. And then pulling off the bodies, you know, one thing you'll notice is that the Spark is a much bigger looking buggy. I mean, this chassis, this body is like, I don't know, 20% bigger than the Syncro-4. So definitely on the track, this felt like almost like a much bigger buggy. Well, you know, maybe this is like a smaller 8 scale. This felt like a really big 8 scale. Now, both of them have the same wheelbase, dimensions, everything, but this is a bigger visually looking buggy, and actually drove and felt like a little bit of a bigger buggy as well. So the Syncro-4 definitely felt much lighter. Steering servo, for whatever reason, felt a little slow. I don't know if the servos are the same. I think they are the same, so I'm not really sure why. Maybe the steering servo saver needs to be tightened down, but the steering felt slower on this. The servo felt slower on this. Could be something to do with the radio. I'm not really sure. But yeah, electronics wise, steering wise, this felt slower, a little bit harder to drive in terms of steering. And that would probably be the number one upgrade I would do on this car, is change out the servo to a more powerful servo. And then probably second thing I would do is change out the radio. But otherwise, you know, suspension wasn't too bad. You know, it's a little bit softer than the Spark. The suspension setup, I think, is a little bit softer. So, you know, the buggy itself feels way softer. A little bit, you know, knocked around a little bit more by the track. So if you weren't landing quite as well, this thing would kind of bounce around through the air, as, you know, blown around by the wind a little bit more. So that is one other difference I would say. But yeah, because it's so light though, it does actually handle quite well. I did find the handling on this buggy really good. Another thing to realize is that the battery, you know, you don't really want wires just sticking straight up, because the battery, you know, the body sits so low on the chassis that it does kind of push up a little bit. So you really want more of a flatter 4S pack if possible. But the one good thing about this is it's so light, it does actually handle quite well. The other good thing is that this motor is a 4S based motor, so really it's optimized for 4S. The 6S Curon 825 is really optimized for a 6S motor, so it's not spinning quite as fast, doesn't feel quite as revvy, and so yeah, this buggy is really more set up for 6S. So running on 4S, it's sort of hampered a little bit, I would say, in terms of revolutions. It's not as quite revvy feeling. It doesn't seem to spin up quite as fast. So that's another difference, I would say, between the Syncro-4 and the Spark. Now, in terms of how the Spark 6 actually performs, it is quite heavy. It feels really heavy. It looks really big. It's not knocked around quite as much by the track or any bumps or through the air or anything. So it's a more stable vehicle. Did feel a little front heavy. I'm not sure if there really is a difference in terms of like motor weight distribution or something like that, but it did feel like you can actually tell the motor is a little bit more forward here on the Spark than it is on the Syncro-4, I think, a little bit. So maybe that contributes to it. I'm not really sure. You know, you can see the spacer on this is actually pushing the battery a little bit back, whereas on this one, and it is also actually set up a little bit back, but you just kind of broke off here in the front. So yeah, this buggy feels a little bit more forward weight biased, so it does tend to nosedive a little bit more in the air. And then because you're running a 6S motor on 4S, it's not as revvy, so you're pulling the throttle, making sure you're getting full revs. This thing, you know, would have way more power on 6S, but on a 4S feels a little lethargic, so that's the other thing. So actually this buggy, I would say, feels vehicles a little bit easier to drive just because things don't happen quite as much. The servo is a little bit quicker for whatever reason it felt like. So the steering was good, but it's a little bit more calm when things are happening a little bit slower, you know, as compared to the Syncro. So the Syncro doesn't have sway bars or anything like that. Traction was actually pretty good. This one does have sway bars, so it does tend to kind of like, I guess, slide a little bit more in my opinion. Even though it has the hooked up tires, the rear end felt a little stiff. And then the other reason is, you know, maybe it's got the stiffer springs. I'm not really sure. But yeah, this buggy overall feels stiffer, heavier, and then slower to, you know, sort of do things. So a little bit easier to drive and a little bit more stable. So that's kind of the main difference between the Spark and the Syncro-4. So yeah, anyways, that's kind of my thoughts. Driving these things back to back, same batteries, tires are very similar, not exactly the same, but very similar buggies, and both of them, you know, actually performed quite well. I think people were kind of surprised that these buggies could kind of hang with whatever they were running at the track nitro or whatever they were running. I thought I drove okay, and yeah, there's, you know, pretty good performing vehicles overall. Now, obviously, the Spark is better equipped out of the box. It does have the sway bars, it has the all aluminum shocks, has the aluminum shock towers, or these are basically composite or a hybrid composite. Yeah, I think otherwise the other thing you might want to do is go to adjustable steering links, adjustable camber links, maybe if you were actually going to race these things. But yeah, both buggies actually performed quite well, a little bit different, and you know, obviously there's a cost and a price difference between the two as well. So anyways, between the two, I would say probably just straight out of the box, I did like the Syncro-4 a little bit better because it's just lighter. The motor revs much more balanced, much more appropriately on a 4S pack, whereas the Spark really set up more for 6S. So racing, for those who don't know, an 8 scale is always done on 4S. So, you know, you'd probably want to swap out the motor, or at least up the pinion or something like this, if you were actually going to run this on 4S. But yeah, both buggies perform well overall, though. I would probably take the Syncro-4 completely stock out of the box. Just felt a little bit set up a little bit better, and, you know, performed a little bit better, I think, out of the box. Whereas the Spark really not as much of a 4S race buggy. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. You know, hype this video if you like content like this. I kind of like to do these shit outs. They're pretty fun for me to do, especially when you get to run a buggy back to back and just kind of see the pros and cons, or sort of the differences in how they perform. Don't forget to hit the like, share, subscribe buttons. Look for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.